Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this month's Core Advocates webinar. We're going to hold off on getting started for just a couple of minutes to allow folks to get logged on and sort of settled in. For those of you that are ready to go, we would encourage you to take a moment to download the handouts so that those are easily accessible for when we refer to them a little bit later on in the webinar. And I believe we also have a poll while we're waiting. So we would encourage you to participate in that. And we'll get started in just about 2 more minutes.
All right. Well, if you are just seeing the quick poll screen, that is the correct screen. You are where you're supposed to be. We just put up a short poll in the beginning of each webinar to get some information about our audience. And it looks like for the majority of people who will be participating in this webinar tonight, this will be their very first webinar. So welcome, and we hope to see you on the many more webinars.
Great. Thank you, Janelle. And thank you, everyone, for participating in the poll. And thank you for joining us for our monthly Core Advocates webinar. We're excited tonight to be talking about enVisionmath 2.0 and our materials adaptations project around that. I'm Joni Funderburk. I am the Manager of Professional Learning on the Field Impact team at Student Achievement Partners, and I'm joined tonight by the other members of my team, Linda Nguyen, Jenny Beltramini, Janelle Fan, and Sandra Alberti. And we are also very excited to have 2 special guests with us on tonight's webinar. From Student Achievement Partners, we have Anna Schattauer-Paye, and we also have a core advocate, Jamie Pitkin, who will be sharing lots of great information with you about enVisionmath 2.0 tonight. We do have a huge number of you that are first timers, so if you aren't familiar with our Core Advocates program, we are a national teacher network, and all the educators in our network believe in the potential of college and career ready standards and their ability to prepare all students for whatever outcomes they want to seek after graduating from high school. We support advocacy work in terms of instruction, assessment, and instructional materials. And if you'd like to learn more about the Core Advocate program, you can contact me directly. You can contact my colleague Jenny directly. We also have a survey on our website, achievethecore.org, and lots of other great information for you to check out on the website as well. So we hope that you will give us more information about you so we can continue to meet the needs of our core advocates and have you join our fabulous network of educators. We know many of you are active on Twitter, and we are too. We hope that you will feel free to tweet during tonight's webinar. We use the hashtag Core Advocates, and we hope that you'll follow Student Achievement Partners on Twitter. Our handle is @AchieveTheCore, and I've also included the handles of those of us that are presenters tonight so that you can tag us in your learning. During tonight's webinar, we will be asking you to engage with us. We try to make this more than just you sitting and listening to us talk. So if you'll notice, you have a control panel through GoToWebinar that allows you to access documents. We do have some handouts for you, so we would encourage you to download those now if you haven't already. We'll also be asking you to engage with us by answering some questions, and you do that by typing into the questions box. You can type any question you have into the question box at any time. We do have members of the team just monitoring that, so we're happy to help you out as we go through. And then as you saw at the very beginning, we will also be asking you to engage with a couple of polls, and when that happens, those will just pop right up on your screen for you to click your responses. After the webinar is over, we will send you a survey. We really greatly appreciate the feedback that you give us, and we use it each month to help make our webinars better. So we appreciate you taking the time to complete that. And then within the next day or two, you'll receive access to the webinar recording, as well as hard copies of all of the handouts and the slide deck presentation that we'll be using tonight. So with all of the introductory business complete, we'll actually get started on the topic of tonight's webinar. We have three main goals for you tonight. We hope that you will understand the need for the materials adaptation project, we call it MAP, and the scope of the work that has been done around enVisionmath 2.0. We're going to give you a sneak preview of the guidance documents that have been created for enVisionmath 2.0. These are not formally released to the public, so you get the special look at those tonight. And then we also have Jamie on to talk about her use of the guidance documents so far and to give you some ideas about how you might use them in your setting. So let's get started tonight by talking about why we have the materials adaptation project and why we have guidance documents. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Anna.
Thanks, Joni. Yeah, so why do this work? Why adapt enVisionmath 2.0? The quotation that you see on your screen is really the basis for why the guidance documents were created. Teachers are making minute-by-minute decisions to support and respond to students, and we want to ensure that teachers have support in using their instructional materials in ways that are aligned to the standards. So the purpose of these guidance documents is really to relieve some of that daily decision-making about instructional materials and take that off of teachers so that you can focus instead on the needs of your particular students. So the purpose of the guidance documents, like I said, is really to support educators in using enVisionmath in ways that align to the standards. And the SAP team began this work in early 2017. The math team reviewed the program, and through that review determined that it would benefit from some guidance around using the materials in ways that align to the expectations of the standards, or better align to those expectations. And so to provide this support, we wanted to create a companion document that would help teachers. And so those documents, which we'll get to look into a little later on, do three main things. They connect content to the expectations of the standards, they highlight strong tasks in the program, and we recommend changes to the topic tests to match those changes that are happening instructionally with the program. And we'll get into all of those in more detail later. The creation of the documents themselves were really a collaborative effort with districts across the country and a couple partner organizations as well. SAP held a convening in the summer of 2017 to bring together all these folks that you see named on the slide who all use enVision and want support in using the program in ways that are more aligned. So we created these draft guidance documents so that teachers in some of these districts and in some other districts could pilot them over the fall. And you'll see too, Pearson is listed as one of the partners who came to this convening. They have been engaged in this work with us and are interested in the work we're doing and the places where we're highlighting certain pieces of the program. As we made the adaptations, our North Star and focus was always the shift. This was really the lens for making adaptations to the project or to the program, and any issues that we identified and changes that we thought needed to be made to the program always had to be grounded in and connected back to the shift. And you'll see that play through when you look in the guidance documents. And so in analyzing the materials, in the convening and with some focus groups and talking with teachers, several key areas really came out as ways we could improve the alignment of the program. The first way was to increase opportunities for students to engage with the mathematics of the grade. The second was really to de-emphasize requirements for students to use specific models and strategies unless that's explicitly required by the standards. The third was to strengthen the coherence of the program, both within and across topics, and really tighten up those mathematical connections and make them explicit for both teachers and students. And finally, we wanted to align the work of the program to the aspect of rigor required by the individual clusters and standards. And as we reviewed the program, we saw some misalignments there, and so we wanted to clarify those in these documents. Each of these areas of focus are reflected in different parts of the guidance documents, and are all, again, aligned to the shifts and the expectations of the standards. And one thing I'll just mention is that while this guidance is really particularly for enVisionmath and the extent of the issues and the details we're going to talk about are really about this program, these four areas identified on the slide are generalizable to adapting or considering any program. They're things that should be considered when thinking about aligned math programs generally. And so now we're going to share the link to the early access for these documents. So you can go ahead and click that link to download a grade level that either you teach or support.
All right, so you should be able to see in your control panel, you should be able to see the link that will allow you to download the sneak peek documents that we'll be talking about tonight. So we would encourage you to do that. And once you have those downloaded, we also have a poll that we would love for you to participate in as well. So if you would click on that.
Okay, it looks like there should be a different question. And that question actually is one I'm going to send to the audience. Oh.
Sorry about that, everyone. We had the wrong poll here, so that popped up not the way that we wanted it to. I'm going to go back a slide so you can see these identified places for adaptation. And we would love for you to answer the poll question using the chat box. We're curious about which of these identified places for adaptation in enVisionmath 2.0 most resonates with your experience in the program. We'll give you just a minute to type in your responses before we move on to the next part of the webinar. All right, with all those responses coming in, we can tell that you're really excited because these adaptations are resonating with you. So I want to go ahead and move us on to the next portion. Anna is going to get into some more of the details about the guidance documents themselves. So if you haven't already, be sure that you click on the link that was sent out. We'll have the link pop up periodically throughout, so you have a chance to download those documents. And I just want to say, don't feel the need to open the documents and try to follow along here. Anna's going to give you a great overview of the components of those documents. And then since you have the download, you can dive into them a little more deeply after the webinar is over. So Anna, why don't you tell us about the actual specifics of the guidance document?
Great. Yeah, so I want to start by looking at two problems that appear in the program itself. So you can take a minute to read the tasks that are on the slide. There should be one on the left and one on the right. And as you read that, think to yourself, and we're not going to do a poll or anything, but just think to yourself for a second about if you think the problem on the left should be for grade 1 or grade 2, and then the same question for the problem on the right. Should that be grade 1 or grade 2? And I'll give you just a second to think about that. So I imagine some of you may be going back and forth, not quite sure which is which, maybe thinking I'm posing a trick question or something, but it's really not clear, is it? And this is something that we saw as we looked through the program, but there's not always a clear distinction between the grade level expectations that are in the program. And so the use of, as we look at these two problems, the use of a 10 frame and making a 10 is really like grounded in the work of grade 1 and thinking about the different strategies that students have for adding and subtracting within 20. Supporting individual students in use of the 10 frame in grade 2 can be perfectly acceptable depending on where students are at. But students by grade 2 should really be choosing strategies that they learned in grade 1, and we shouldn't be repeating all of that work in grade 2. And so the answers here, although not the focus, but the problem on the left is supposed to be for grade 2 and the problem on the right is grade 1, although it really appears that they're at the same level. So this is a lot of what we tried to do with the guidance documents, is to bring more clarity to the grade level expectations and to provide teachers with ways to enact that in their grades. So each grade level topic guidance starts with a document that's called Getting Started. And this one pager provides general information about how to use the guidance document, provides some specifics about the grade level, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, all K through 5. And it also includes 2 overarching guidelines that apply to all the grades. And we're calling these pro tips, and we'll get into those on the next couple slides. So the first of these overarching guidelines that apply across all grades and should be enacted in the program is to remove embedded scaffolding that's provided for students. And removing this scaffolding increases student opportunity to engage in the mathematical work of the grade. As we reviewed the program and talked with teachers, we saw that there was lots of scaffolding in the program, and this over-scaffolding reduces a student's ability to engage in math practice 1. They're not able to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them for themselves. If the scaffolding is doing too much of the heavy lifting and the making sense for students, they're not going to get the chance to, as math practice 1 requires, start by explaining to themselves the meaning of a problem and looking for entry points to its solution. So students need opportunities to do this on their own without unnecessary scaffolding. And that's really what this first pro tip is all about. The second pro tip is about supporting students in understanding and using strategies and models that are generalizable, but not requiring students to use specific strategies during independent practice or assessment. In the program, there are lots of strategies and models presented, and not all strategies and models are equally useful to students as they move throughout the grades. The emphasis in instruction should really be on strategies that generalize, that are going to continue to serve students as they progress in their mathematics education. It is important to note with this pro tip, though, that a specific strategy could be required during the instruction of a lesson, but use of specific strategies shouldn't be required on an assessment or when students are practicing on their own. For assessment, it's important to let students decide which strategy they want to use to solve the problem so that you can really assess their knowledge of the content rather than their knowledge of the strategy. And then students also have the chance to exhibit Math Practice 5. They're able to choose the tools or strategies that they want to use to show what they know. And you'll see both of these pro tips come through in the specific grade level guidance documents. So what's in the guidance documents? We'll explore each of these sections further on the following slides, but each grade level topic guidance has all of the elements that you see listed here on the slide. The asterisk, though, indicates that those elements are only provided for topics aligned to the major work of the grade. So anchor tasks and topic rules of thumb are only provided with major work topics. And that's because we wanted to provide more guidance and more information about how to attend to that critical content. And as we go through each of these aspects of the guidance documents, this is really going to be like an intro overview, more about learning about the purpose of each section, so that as you explore the documents that you downloaded through that link later on in the coming days, you have a really clear picture of what each section is supposed to do. So this first section that you see in the guidance documents is about standards alignment and the aspects of rigor. We wanted to clearly identify the standards that are targeted by this topic, and these are the standards identified in the topic planner pages of enVision. The thing that we did to provide some more clarity is we indicated which standard is really primary in the topic and which are secondary and kind of playing a supportive role. And the aspects of rigor are also listed, and those are the ones that are connected to the standards that are addressed above. And so in this topic that you see on the screen, I know it's really small to see, but students will be working with application problems, but the main focus of the work in this topic should be on conceptual understanding as required by the primary standard. Next, the guidance documents provide excerpts from the progression documents. So the progressions offer a wealth of information about mathematical ideas and concepts through the domains and how they develop for students across grade levels. And we include them here to ground educators in these mathematical ideas and provide some context for the connections that should exist in the topic, both within and across grades. Next, each topic then has essential questions, and these focus on the high-level mathematical purpose of the topic. And then it's followed by anchor tasks. And these tasks are identified as the highest leverage, best aligned tasks to use to build student mastery and knowledge of the topic. These anchor tasks are intended to be used as a launch for the lessons and are really worthy of extended instructional time. So teachers should plan to spend more time on these tasks and use them for classroom discussion. Within a lesson, there will be other problems that teachers also decide to use. The anchor tasks don't mean that these are the only problems to use, but these are the ones that really merit the extended time and attention. And you'll see that each anchor task also has an explanation for why this task was elevated to be an anchor task. And these explanations can support decision-making for what additional aspects of the lesson or topic teachers will want to use or maybe skip or combine as they're planning across the topic. So now let's look at one of these anchor tasks. So here you'll see a problem that was elevated as an anchor task for grade 3. And right now, I'd ask that you read the task and think about this question. What strategies would you expect to see from students knowing that this problem is at the beginning of grade 3? I think this is from the second topic. So take a minute, read the task, and think about that question. What strategies would you expect to see from students? And you can put your response in the question tab.
Great, thank you. We're seeing lots of responses in the question tab. So as we see responses come up, Sandra and I will share them out and reply so that you can see some of the responses that others left. But I'm seeing quite a few people are saying that third graders might draw a picture or a visual of some kind. Many people have said repeated addition. A couple of people have said drawing an array or drawing a picture of equal groups. And so lots of different ways and really a huge variety of ways that you're responding that students might approach this problem.
Great, thanks for sharing those strategies and ideas. So now I want to move to showing the full task. And so here you see how the problem actually appears in the textbook. And so I highlight this to show one way that the pro tips can come into play in individual topics and lessons. So the book provides this scaffolding and asks students to use the table that's on the bottom there in blue to solve the problem. And so if students are using this table to do that, they're not thinking really about how to solve the problem. They're thinking more about how to use the table to solve the problem. So when students are prompted to do this, we're going to miss out on all the other strategies that you all brainstormed as we thought about how students might respond to this. We wouldn't see students using pictures or repeated addition or thinking about maybe their visual models of equal groups. They'll be putting numbers in the table. And so we'll miss out on that mathematical conversation that could happen between students and sharing of different ways that students thought about solving the problem. So in this case, this pro tip helps to create a situation where we can extend this conversation and get kids really thinking about how to access the problem and talking about how they found the solution. So next, each major work topic includes a section on topic-specific rules of thumb. And these speak to the specifics of that topic. They suggest instructional choices that are designed to better align all of the work of that topic to the expectations of the standards. As with the anchor tasks, each of the rules of thumb includes a rationale that's grounded in the standards of the progression document. So you can kind of understand why we're recommending that a change or a rule be applied across the topic. And these rules of thumb really work to strengthen the coherence at times. They'll suggest perhaps reordering lessons or providing some guidance on making connections between topics and making those explicit for students. Finally, each topic guidance includes a section on modifying the topic assessment. So for each assessment item, an action is recommended in order to improve alignment and match some of the instructional changes that you'll be making as you follow the anchor tasks and the topic rules of thumb. So many times this consists of removing a specific model or strategy and just allowing students to access the problem or use a strategy in the way that they would want. And then sometimes items are recommended to just use as is, or sometimes it's recommended to delete some items. And here you see an example of how one pilot teacher was able to use the topic assessment guidance. So this teacher this is a grade 2 assessment and lesson, and this teacher used the topic assessment guidance to determine how to modify the assessment and how to modify the problems. So this teacher asked students to cross out language that prompted students to use particular strategies. So in problem 5, it's probably a little hard to read, but students, the crossed out part says break apart the numbers to solve. And in 6, the students crossing out use an open number line to find 58 plus 16. So this teacher doesn't want to require the students to use those strategies and instead wants the student to solve the problem in a way that makes sense to them. So by removing those prompts, this teacher will have a better sense for what his students know and can do. So as you can see, there's a lot of rich information that exists in the guidance documents. And as we thought about use case for the guidance documents, we really think they'll be most useful when used for planning instruction for an upcoming topic. So on the slide, you see a suggested framework for using the guidance documents to plan. And this is a framework that was used by some of the teachers who were able to pilot the guidance documents in the fall. So the framework here really follows the guidance documents and starts with reading the standards and the progressions to ground yourself in the mathematical ideas for the topic, and then prompts you to move on to complete the anchor tasks to actually do the math. And this will help you to see where those deep mathematical conversations can happen, to come up with some questions that might get your students thinking, and to identify any misconceptions that you think your students might have as they solve the problem. And then as you plan the topic, you can think about, where more time might be needed, what you could skip or combine. And as you think about that, you can reference those topic rules of thumb and the rationales for the topic rules of thumb, but also for the anchor tasks to think about how you'll apply them through the lesson and what other elements of the program to use. So with these adaptations, the program will better align to the expectations of the shifts in standards, and hopefully you'll start to see that with your students' mastery of the content as well.
All right, thank you, Anna, for that overview. I'm sure just watching the question box, people are very excited about the information that's available here, and I know these are going to get a lot of great use. We would love right now to hear from you. How do you see the guidance documents supporting teachers' stronger understanding of the expectation of the standards? We would love for you to kind of type your thoughts about that into the questions box, and we're going to be quiet here for just a minute to give you a chance to respond, and then we'll share out some of those responses to this question.
Great, I'm seeing lots of responses, and Sandra and I are sharing those out so that you can all see them as well. But many people commented on the opportunity to dig deeply into really questioning what are the standards requiring of students through the use of these guidance documents. And also many people have responded about how excited they are about the idea of allowing students the opportunity to solve in a variety of ways and removing the scaffolding from some of the problems. And so lots of people commenting on that. In addition, many people have commented on referring back to the progressions and how the guidance documents do that, and really zero teachers in on the progression documents and how those will help really clarify what's being asked in the standards, and thinking about that in terms of the enVision materials.
All right, well, thank you for your responses, and go ahead and keep those coming in. Jenny and Sandra will be sharing them out with you. We're excited now to shift to part 3, where we get to hear from an educator who has actually been doing this work this school year. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie. And Jamie, if you want to start with an introduction of yourself.
Yes, hi. So I am Jamie Pickin, and this is my second year as the K-5 Elementary Instructional Specialist for Math in East Hartford, Connecticut. We are an urban school district, and we consist of 8 elementary schools, which is approximately 3,000 students, K-5. And in terms of how we rank in the state, we consistently rank in the bottom 10 in the state for performance, and that's out of 169 districts. And so when I heard about the materials adaptation project, I instantly jumped at the opportunity to work with student achievement partners. We currently, at that time when the project was being introduced, we didn't have a curriculum. Our curriculum was our textbook, which was the Realize edition of Pearson, and we just taught it in order from front to back. So we were desperately in need of something. We needed a curriculum. We needed some direction. So 3 of our classroom teachers, as well as myself, participated in the convening, which happened in the summer of 2017. And I supported with the second grade material. So in order to roll out the guidance documents, I first had to create curricular documents to highlight the major focus and work of the year for the district. So I began with a summary of the grade level work, which is the document that you're seeing. This highlights the key areas of the primary grades and the intermediate grades, and it identifies grade level fluencies as well as key strategies. This document I did create for our district, and it was just to clear up any misinterpretations that people may have of the grade level band work and of the fluencies. The second document that I created, because the majority of our teachers did not participate in the convening, as stated, only 3 teachers participated, I needed to create a guidance document terminology sheet, and this simply explains all of the language and terminology that exists in the guidance document. So this document was shared K-5 with every grade level. The third document I created was just a summary of the pro tips. So this was handed out by student achievement partners, and I just turned it into a 1-pager so that all teachers had a separate pro tip sheet that they could refer to when looking at the topics. And then from that point, I needed to give the district some direction. So I created a scope and sequence, which is on the screen here. And what you see is basically a year at a glance. So this allows the teachers to see the pacing, the number of instructional days, the topic order, what the primary standards and secondary standards are. And this piece the teachers really like because we do have standards-based report cards. So when they complete the standards-based report cards, they're able to take out the scope and sequence and have the standards that were taught right in front of them, so that they have kind of a cheat sheet to the work that was done for that reporting period. And then the last but most important document that I needed to create was a revised version of the guidance documents. So because this was in the draft year for student achievement because this was the pilot year for student achievement partners, I had to create a revised version because I needed to focus on teaching grade level content, the what and the why. So what is it that we should be teaching and why is it that we should be teaching it? So as part of this document, I did feel that it was necessary to add additional resources. So what you're seeing at the bottom of the page, those are resources that East Hartford owns. So I did embed these into the guidance documents so that teachers understood we weren't ignoring all of those resources that we previously utilized. We were still using them in line with or alongside the enVisionmath 2.0 and the guidance documents. So what was left out of the guidance documents, because I did need these documents to be user-friendly, was instead of including the actual standards and the progressions, I inserted a hyperlink, as you can see, so that the teachers could hyperlink those documents, so the standards documents and the progressions documents for each topic, so that the documents wouldn't be too lengthy. And the aspects of Rigor I included later on in the year. You'll hear about those in a couple of minutes. So once I created these 5 curricular documents, I then had to consider professional development. So what you're seeing is the professional development from the district level. So this is what happened beginning in June 2017 through February of 2018. I also support the teachers at staff meetings as part of grade level meetings, and I communicate on a regular basis with data team leaders and coaches. We have 2 instructional coaches in each of our elementary buildings. So I am in constant communication with everyone as we work through this year and learn about enVisionmath 2.0 and use the guidance documents to as our curriculum. So as a result of the February 2018 PD, we were basically in our 5th month of now learning from the guidance documents. So in February, what we did was we had a district PD where all kindergarten teachers, all 1st grade teachers were able to meet and look at the guidance documents together. So I needed to create a guidance document topic planner. The purpose of this document was to help the teachers intentionally plan and to help them focus on what needs to be taught and why, how it's assessed, and it also asks the teachers to look at the anchor tasks and discuss how they would solve the anchor tasks, and then how they anticipate the students would solve the anchor tasks. What strategies, what models do they think that the students would use, so that they're getting a broad picture of what's going to happen in this topic and what instructional decisions that they need to make. So throughout the year, I constantly ask teachers for feedback. So this is some of the feedback that the teachers have given me, and these are some of the highlights of using the guidance documents and of having a curriculum now. So the teachers have shared that they're easy to follow. It saves them time trying to weed through envisions and figure out what is best. They feel the layout is teacher friendly. It gives them direction. It's more rigorous and it works better with the workshop model. They love the outline of the concepts and standards that need to be addressed. And they really love the anchor tasks because it allows them to pick the activities that are most aligned, since the guidance documents highlight those anchor tasks. And then some of our teacher grows areas where we need to continue our work is that what many teachers have learned as a result of using the guidance documents is that they have spent very little time teaching grade level content. And as a result of this, they have numerous beliefs and misinterpretations of the standards. So our teachers have learned through this process that they have been reteaching year after year after year. And as a result of that, they themselves don't have a solid understanding of what the grade level content is and what the standards actually mean. So this is an area where we have a lot more work. But as a result of using the guidance documents and having a curriculum now, my teachers have seen that this is an area where we need to continue to focus and where we need to continue to work. The other teacher grow is just the harsh reality that as part of past practice, we've done things because they're convenient. We've done things because that's our belief. And we haven't given planning the time that it actually deserves. So that's another area where we need to continue to work and grow, is with intentional planning. So as part of our next steps, I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of work to be done. I consider this year to be our learning year. This year was all about the what and the why of the grade level. And now next year, we'll get into more of the how and the day-to-day. So I'll continue to revise the guidance documents, embed the supporting and additional clusters into the major cluster work so the teachers can see how they actually support those major standards. And we also need to work more on what are the generalizable strategies and what are the most effective models K-5 and how do they build on each other, and at what points should you change certain models because of the content that's now being introduced. And another area that also deserves some attention is we know our students do have gaps and deficits. So another layer of our next steps is to utilize the coherence map so that we can build a deeper understanding of the standards that support the grade level content that we're teaching so that we know where to meet the students in their gaps and how to address those concerns. And again, there's the progressions documents. At this time, I haven't spent much time with the progression documents because, again, I need to take baby steps at rolling this out as a district. But the progressions documents are definitely going to be a highlight of future PD because I do need to have the teachers start to grapple with the information that's in there because they do need a solid understanding of the vertical alignment that happens K-5 within each domain and within the standards.
Jamie, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. And I know I was watching the question box and this probably got answered, but a lot of folks were interested in getting copies of the handouts that you created, and those are what the handouts are for the webinar. So yes, if you see the handouts tab, you can go ahead to download those documents that Jamie shared. All right, so at this time we have some time to open it up for questions from our audience, either for Anna or for Jamie or for both of them. So go ahead and type any questions that you have as follow-up into the question box.
Am I allowed to comment on a question?
Of course.
So one person did ask about if there's a plan to do this work with other primary resources, such as Do the Math, Go Math, and Eureka Math. Eureka Math is highlighted as additional resources within the guidance documents, and it's also a large part of the fluency work that Student Achievement Partners embeds within the guidance documents. So Eureka Math is referenced numerous times within the guidance documents. So I know that wasn't your exact question, but it is embedded within the guidance documents.
And to say we do have adaptation guidance for Go Math. We did a similar project 2 years ago on that program, so that is available on achievethecore.org.
Jamie, there was a question that I think you could answer. Somebody was wondering the reaction of teachers to the professional development. Did you get positive feedback from the PD?
From a particular PD or just in general? So I find right now that the district is kind of torn. The teachers K-5, I'd say, are 50-50. 50% of the teachers feel that these guidance documents have given them almost, instead of them feeling the pressure of trying to decide which topics they should be teaching, now the guidance documents give them the relief of knowing that I no longer have to make these decisions. The guidance documents have made these decisions for me. Everything is aligned, so I know what I'm doing is in line with the grade level expectations. So I have a core group who has embraced the guidance documents, who has appreciated this work and really loves that they're able now to dig deeper because they don't have to spend the time weeding through the program and figuring out what is best. The other 50% of the teachers tend to be more of my intermediate grade level teachers, my grade 3 to 5 teachers, which half of our district is departmentalized grades 3 to 5, and the other half aren't. Some of the elementary buildings use departmentalizations and some don't. And some of the teachers just have very strong beliefs about how the content should be taught in the order in which they think it should be taught. So right now there is some resistance, but because everything is in draft form, we are always looking at, what is the best order, and how should we teach certain topics. So it's a continual conversation that continues to happen, and I do reach out to student achievement partners frequently to ask for their support as well with helping the teachers understand that that your beliefs aren't necessarily aligned with the standards, and we need to clear up those misconceptions and those misinterpretations. So right now, in terms of the PD, the teachers have been very grateful for it, but we are still kind of, torn as a district in terms of how this year has gone.
Can I'm going to ask you, this is Sandra, Jamie, to respond to another question that's related to the PD and support for all of this, which was a question that someone posted about, and Anna, if you want to kind of chime in on this as well, your experience with this, is if we give teachers documents that do a lot of this unpacking work, are we taking that opportunity to learn away from the teachers, and how have you found them to kind of do the learning with so much guidance being provided to them?
So I've actually found that the teachers are very grateful because the opposite has actually happened. So it allows me to dig deeper into the standards because I am revising the document. So my understanding becomes greater, and then I train the instructional coaches, and then they then turn key to the teachers. So we've actually, as a result of the guidance documents, we have dug deeper because we learned that as a district, we haven't been teaching grade level content. So this has kind of given us that gateway, that path to the standards, and it's led us to the standards. And now we're having more conversations about what they do actually mean and what the students are actually expected to know by the end of their school year, their grade level year. So I can understand that question, but it has in fact provided us the opportunity to dig deeper because it's freed up our time with critiquing the textbook and what should come first and what should be eliminated.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too. I think agree with everything that Jamie said, and I think we've heard from piloting teachers just that they're grateful for the support that the guidance documents provide in terms of figuring out which aspects of the program to leverage. There's, I'm sure as you all know, just a large amount of content that exists in the program. And so helping to point out which pieces are kind of the highest leverage pieces has been helpful to teachers. And I think some of the other components of the guidance documents can inspire that deeper exploration that the person who asked the question is getting at, particularly with the study of the progressions and of the particular expectations of the standards. And with that, with these guidance documents, we know there are still decisions that teachers are going to have to make about what other aspects of the program to use and use some of what they've learned through that investigation of the progressions and those rationales or explanations for the anchor tasks and the topic rules of thumb to then do some of this work on their own to figure out what other aspects of the lesson they want to use.
Anna, there was a question about if there was a difference in terms of teachers picking up the guidance documents and using them with other districts that maybe enVision 2.0 wasn't also their first year with the 2.0 version. So I know you worked with a few other districts with pilot activities. I'm wondering if any of the other districts you worked with did not have enVision 2.0 as like the first year in conjunction with also implementing the guidance documents, and how you think that went for those districts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember if one of the districts was in their first or second year, and I can't quite remember. But I think one theme that we saw kind of across, and one thing we heard from some focus groups with the piloting district, I think it's a lot of the same kind of struggles that Jamie was talking about in her context. But one thing we really heard particularly was around like planning time, just really the need for planning time, that these documents, require some study and some investigation and some thinking about how you're going to enact this as you think about a topic, and that not all districts, not all teachers have maybe the planning time that they need in order to take something like this on. So I think that was one thing that we kind of heard across, no matter if people had more familiarity with the program or less.
Great, thank you. I think we will move on now. We just have a couple of minutes left, so we will start to wrap up our webinar. Thank you so much for all of the really thoughtful questions, and just I want to do a special thank you to both Jamie and Anna for a fabulous job explaining the guidance documents and letting us know, Jamie, especially how it went in your district. And several people commented on your honesty with how it goes, and I think instructional coaches can especially relate to it. So if you found tonight's webinar helpful, we'd love to invite you to join our Core Advocate Network. We're committed to solving real problems that real teachers have, and we know the best way to do this is to know more about what folks are experiencing. The enVision documents are just an example of that. So we'd love to hear from you and learn about who you are and where you work and the types of things you're interested in and the expertise you already have. This way we'll be able to tailor our webinars and other opportunities to your needs and interests. We may even tap you to be one of our next webinar panelists. So we encourage you to join the network by filling out the survey completely at achievethecore.org/CA signup. And additionally, we'd like to invite Core Advocates to share with us what they're doing more broadly. So whether it's you trying a strategy or a tool, we'd like to know how it went. We'd especially love to know how you use the resources from tonight's webinar, including the guidance documents. If you use them in your classroom or if you use them with colleagues, we'd love for you to share. So please let us know about your instructional advocacy by filling out our brief form. And finally, we hope that you will all be interested in joining us for next month's webinar, where we will dive into ways to support English language learners with college and career-ready standards in both literacy and math. As always, our monthly webinars are the first Wednesday of each month from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And when you receive the materials from tonight's webinar, you'll be able to click on this link to register, and actually all of the other hyperlinks that are embedded in the in the slide deck. So thank you again for joining us this evening, and thank you to our guests, Jamie and Anna, for making this a rich experience for all of our participants, and we hope you have a great evening.